Hello, purveyors of fantasy and folly. Yub Nub. I'm an Ewok, or at least dressed like an Ewok. I've been doing this since I was a kid.
It's Brimstone.
Yeah, right, Brimstone.
So before I went furry, or rather realized I was furry, I've always kind of had a fascination with the anthropomorphic. But before I fell into full furrydom, Star Wars was my jam, my thing. In the early 2000s, I was a rabid Star Wars collector, and not just, playing with my action figures, but browsing these Star Wars collecting sites day in and day out. Rebel Scum, Galactic Hunter, all those good websites. I was on the collecting forums, arguing about action figures and all that nonsense. Well, you kind of grow up, and Star Wars isn't really for me now. I don't think it's really for anyone now, if you're given the current direction of the franchise. But one character or subgroup of characters that always stuck with me was the adorable Ewoks from Return of the Jedi that defeat the Galactic Empire. Maybe it was always that secret furriness in me that loved those fuzzy creatures, or maybe it's just my interest in fantasy and sword and sorcery. The Ewoks have their own fantastical world separate from that of Star Wars, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about that today when I found this storybook at an antique store, and it totally made my day. One theme I always thought was really cool that ran through Star Wars was technology versus magic. You have the Empire with technological prowess on their side, the Death Star, TIE fighters, technology, and then you've got the Rebellion, the Jedi, with the Force, which is really just belief in a god. So it's kind of a theological, religious element versus technology. What will win in the end? Magic or might of tech? And in the end, it kind of is magic, as the society of wood and sticks that lives in the trees takes down the mighty Empire. How poetic. But after Return of the Jedi came out, or rather during the production of Return of the Jedi, Lucas knew there was some cash to be made with those fuzzy teddy bears. And so he created the Ewok sub-brand. That was the Ewoks brand that ran concurrent to Star Wars. And there's a lot of furry to be enjoyed with the Ewok sub-brand. It was really its own thing with its own identity. And what I love about this book here is kind of right during the transition where it says Star Wars Return of the Jedi on the top, but then it says how the Ewoks saved the trees, an old Ewok legend, and that's kind of in the Ewok font. And following the release of this book, I think this book is from 83, late 83, early 84, we would go into the Ewoks line. And throughout 1985 and 86, the only Star Wars stuff that came out to stores was Ewoks branded stuff to promote the Ewoks brand, which was its own thing. Ewoks had its own books, it had its own board games, greeting cards, plush dolls, action figures, and a TV show. I'd love to go really in-depth talking about the Ewoks TV show, but not for this episode. I'll just cut right to the chase. The Ewoks TV show is absolutely amazing. It's better than it has any right to be, and that's because it was worked on by Paul Dini. Yeah, Paul Dini, the guy who did Batman the Animated Series. And more importantly than that, created Minerva Mink. So we have a lot to thank Paul Dini for. He made so many wonderful creations loved by furry and fantasy folk like myself. But yeah, this is the Ewoks book. I think this came out before the TV show, but it was meant to tie in with it, as it does feature Wicket and Princess Kneesaa. Now, Kneesaa is the princess and leader of the Ewok tribe, who was created as the figurehead of the Ewok sub-brand. She's not actually in the movie, but she's in everything but the movie. She's in the books, she's in the toys, she's in the games, and they still use her to this day, which makes me very happy that Paul Dini creation from the 1980s cartoon is still part of Star Wars. But yeah, this book is totally awesome. I thought about reading it and doing like a storybook reading, but you know, this channel isn't really for kids. Like, if you're a kid, you shouldn't be watching this. This is adult collecting and appreciation of cartoons, fantasy, and furry. So, you know, I'm not gonna pop this open and give you a story time with Austin. Instead, you'll just have to fall asleep to the sweet serenade of my voice as I talk about Yub Nubs. But I just want to show you some of the artwork in here that I like. And, you know, if you want it, you could grab your own copy. This book is not expensive. It's like, I think I paid $15 for mine. That's about what it goes for. But the artwork in it is to die for. If you love 1980s fantasy illustration, like those cool old covers of 80s fantasy novels, the artwork in here is absolutely to die for. They almost look like beavers more than Ewoks. They really, like, highlighted those puffy cheeks and the big buck teeth. Check this out. So the Ewoks are in the woods here, and they're facing off against the Shrek-like giants. Wow, do those look like TSR creatures or what? Like fairly 80s Dungeons and Dragons looking creatures. I mean, it's terrifying. This book probably wouldn't peacefully put a kid to sleep. It's probably gonna give him nightmares. But that's to be said for a lot of 80s fantasy, right? This is the decade of Return to Oz. So, and the Ewok show is dark. Like, there was an episode, a real episode of the Ewoks cartoon, where Wicket is summoning power, and I think he ends up, he resurrects what is perceived to be a Sith Lord. Yeah, a Sith Lord. Some of the prequel stuff came from Ewoks. And the Sith Lord comes from hell, and they have to send it back to hell. The end of the episode is this creature going back to hell, and it tries to grab Wicket and drag Wicket into hell with it. It's a total trip. You need to watch the Ewok show. Look at this. Look at the king. Look at his throne made of sticks. This is like everything I live for aesthetically. You've got little beaver creatures with clothing made from scraps. It's very Renaissance-y, very old world, but it also ties into Star Wars, so it's sci-fi at the same time, so what's not to love? Look at the Ewoks meeting here. Like this, somebody drew this. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It was illustrated by Walter Valles. But yeah, like, look, it's just amazing. You know, you have the Ewoks running around in the bushes, and the illustrations are just big, and they take up the whole page. There's just a lot to love about this. Look, Wicket is like ready to kill the giant. Kneesaa's like, no, don't kill the giant. We already tied him up. There's no need for that. Wow, that Robin Hood-esque Ewok design is awesome. I would love to have an action figure of that. Wow. They haven't made a lot of Ewok action figures, believe it or not. There were more Ewok action figures in the 80s than today, but I still try to keep up to date with modern collecting, and they still do throw a bone at the Ewok fans and make some animated stuff every now and then, which makes me happy. So yeah, the Ewoks, you know, they scale away the giants with, like Logray casts some magic, and they dance and they eat berries. And that's pretty much what they do in Ewoks. They cast magic, fight monsters, and then dance and eat berries. So I'm sure to them, defeating the Galactic Empire wasn't about saving the universe, as it was just another day at the office for Ewok kind. You know, that's it. It's just a simple children's book. But the artwork in it is so amazing. It's so good. And I wanted to highlight the artwork of Walter Valles specifically because there was a huge film auction coming up. If you're into any type of film or animation or movies, this amazing auction is coming out in LA, I think out of the Peterson Museum. But here's what matters, right? They got like Leia's ceremonial dress, like Harry Potter's robe, and who cares about that? The original artwork of Walter Valles from the Ewok storybooks is going up for sale. You could actually own some of this artwork. Hey, Austin here in the editing bay. The artwork for sale is actually by a guy named Pat Paris, and is for a different storybook called Wicket Finds a Way. Now, this artwork is equally as gorgeous, and seems to be closer aligned with the artwork that was extensively used on Ewoks merchandise. So I'm curious if Pat Paris or Valles, which one of them made the artwork that went on the merch?
Because if you look at like the Play-Doh set here, and then the preschool toys, and even the sculpts of the action figures, they were obviously modeled after one of these Ewok storyboard artists. So I'm curious, is it Pat Paris's artwork or Vales's artwork that was used for these figures and toys? Either way, it is a piece of history, and it's really cool to see this artwork come up for sale. I hope it goes to a happy collector's home.
Yeah, there are underrated artists that walked on Ewoks, and they'll walk to this day as part of the Star Wars history. So that's pretty much my short little video today. I literally just wanted to gush about Ewoks because I found this book while antiquing, and it made me really happy. Also, I have this Ewok hat. And I look like I was 4 because I wore a very similar costume. Some people never grow old. God help me.